Hello, hello, hello. How are you guys doing today? It is currently 4:18 p.m. and 84 degrees in this very humid and hot Thursday afternoon. Didn't vlog last night because I went to bed. I don't even know what time I went to bed last night. I went upstairs when Alex went upstairs. And then, oh no, he went upstairs and I was sitting outside talking to Tanya. And then I went upstairs right after that. And, because he came out, he was like saying goodnight. And I said, I'll be upstairs in 5 minutes. So I was upstairs in like 5 minutes. That probably was about 11. I was asleep, you guys, by probably 11:30 last night. And, one of the things that is starting to happen is, no matter if I go to bed at like 11:30 or 10:30 or midnight or whatever, I'm still getting up, or if I go to bed at like 5 in the morning, I'm still getting up at the same time, which is around noon o'clock. It's around noonish. I'm still getting up at like the same time. And you would think that if I went to bed at like 11:30, that by 7:30 or 8 I would be wide awake. Well, I did wake up this morning. Last night, I vlogged yesterday when I was getting my Chinese food for dinner. And then I came home and Alex was, I don't know what he was watching on TV, I don't remember. Oh, The Bold Type, he loves that show. And I watched an episode on my iPad of RuPaul's Drag Race Canada. Which I really like the Canada ones. And don't tell me anything about who wins or anything. And then what was I gonna say? And then I was yeah, and then after that was when it was like well, I uploaded my vlog when I got home, and then I ate dinner, and then I watched the show while I was eating dinner, and then I talked to Tanya, and that was it. And then I went to bed. And we kind of hung out in bed and talked for a little bit and stuff before I fell asleep. He was playing his game, and we were talking to the dogs. And that was it. It was a nice evening. But I told him last night, it was funny, I said, I want to go and vlog. I was really tired, and I was like, I want to go vlog right now and then listen to my audiobook. But I'm so sleepy. And I said, but if I go right now, I know that I'll get like my, I'll get my second wind, you know? So tonight, I think, well, we're going out to dinner with Melissa and Jason tonight. And so afterwards, my new cup. I don't know if it is from Becca Joe or if it is from Jason, because they both sent me one. But one I have for Alex and one is for me. I love this cup. I think it's so pretty. So we're going out to dinner with Melissa and Jason tonight, and then afterwards I should just come home and like start vlogging right then. And then listen to my audiobook. And today I got up and I trimmed my beard and shaved around here and made the bed. I try to make the bed every single day because that was from like that book, Make Your Bed, because then I feel like I've accomplished like one thing. I actually get quite a bit accomplished in a day. It surprises even me. This guy next to me looks familiar. Uh-oh. I just took off the cap to my lip balm, and I was like, it's gonna get all messed up. Do you ever see somebody and you're like, I don't know how I know that person? You're like, but I know them, but I don't know how I know them. And then several years ago, I was like, because I always think that I know somebody. I'm like that person that's always like, I know you from somewhere. And typically I'm right. But several years ago, I had this like moment of clarity where I was like, you know, I think like half the people that you see that you think you know, you probably have come in contact with before, like at the grocery store or just the gas station or maybe someplace they work or whatever, you know? So So, it is so hot, you guys. I have to turn on the air, I'm sorry. I know it's loud in the back of the video. I just went and reviewed this refresher drink, which is pretty good. It's actually very good. But sometimes we actually don't really know people. It's like, we just think they do. We just think we do. You know, this car is so dying to get by. I'm like, you're going up there, rush up there to get to a red light. Okay. Traffic is kind of busy today. It looks like it's like wanting to rain outside. There's moments where the clouds are like really gray and dark, and then it's like sunny again. It's pretty cloudy though today. There's the car that was dying to pass me so it can get up to that red light. Somebody said that I should do a Peter Does Stuff video of me making a ice cream sundae like my mom used to make when I was a kid, and I actually think that's a really good idea. I look back and I think it's interesting, you know, like that my mom, like I don't really think she ever clued into the fact that I didn't have friends. I mean, my mom had friends, and we would do stuff with, like, her friends' kids, but, like, I didn't have a lot of people come over, and the reason I'm saying this is because, like, with the ice cream sundaes, it seems to me like my mom was constantly thinking of stuff for us to do together, and my mom was really creative. Like, you know, it's interesting because I always talk about, like, the drinking and stuff and the alcoholism on here with my mom, or, you know, my Peterisms videos, but there were so many good times too with my mom. You know, I just had, like, there were pieces, like, you know, when Caroline said on the video that we did together, she was like, you know, our childhood was kind of magical at times. It really was. And, you know, the drinking was, there was periodic periods, but there were also periods where my mom didn't, and things were really, really good. I think in retrospect, honestly, you know, my mom, she had a lot of mental health issues, and she was always in therapy, like, whenever, I mean, always that I knew her, you know. I think there were times that she was on medication, but I also know that she was very scared of medication. My mom didn't even like really to take an aspirin. She was like really, she just was weird about stuff like that. And so I think the times that she drank heavier were when maybe like her depression was stronger. I really think that her drinking was a lot of self-medication. Not excusing it, I'm just saying I think that's what was going on. I think she just was very sad, and I mean, there were a lot of times I think my mom almost just like couldn't even get out of bed, you know? I mean, and I know that, you know, we didn't call bipolar back then, we called it manic depression. And I can remember there were days and my mom just was like on, like in a row. But then there would be days, like I would just kind of go to my dad's house. Like this is weird for me looking back because I didn't at the time really know what it was about. But like all of a sudden my dad would just pick me up and I would be with my dad for a couple days. And I really think, like I was talking about in my vlog yesterday, that, you know, my parents like never argued over like who, when I stayed with who or whatever. I think my dad was kind of my mom's safety net a little bit, as far as like, she would just call him up and say like, I am really struggling right now, can you come and get him? And I think they just, you know, my parents didn't really talk to me about adult issues when I was growing up. I don't think they felt like they should. I mean, they didn't, I can really remember like one argument that my parents had in front of me ever. Like, well, the night that my dad left, I remember that. And then there was one other argument because my dad picked me up and my stepmom was in the car. And I think it was before they were married. And they pulled into the driveway and my mom went berserk. And I remember I was really embarrassed because like all the kids in the neighborhood, it was like in the summer or something, and like all the kids were playing in the neighborhood like out in the street, and my mom was like screaming at the top of her lungs like in the courtyard. But other than that, I don't really remember my parents fighting. Like, they really were good to parent on the same page, and they were really good to not talk about the other one. Like, I can remember anytime I would ever say anything about my dad, my mom would say, "You don't speak poorly of your father. Like, your dad works very, very hard to take care of us. Your dad has given you a good life. Your dad loves you. Your dad supports you. He's at everything that you do," which was true. I mean, I didn't even really know this until later, but like, my dad, who was the entire time that I was in school was chief of staff of this hospital, and was also on the state medical board, and also on all kinds of boards in Indianapolis. Like, he would like reschedule. He would have the, oh my God, the traffic on the interstate. What is going on? Both ways. Lord. He would like reschedule these meetings just so he could come to like a choir concert or like an orchestra concert or something, you know, or like a meet with a teacher night. Like, my dad was at everything. And so was my mom. Like, my mom was at everything too. And you know, and likewise, like, whenever I would say something about my mom, like, my dad would say, "You don't speak about your mother that way. You don't ever call her names, that woman," you know. And he didn't go to the, you know, "she gave you life" kind of speech. He just was like, my dad was really, really big on, you don't, like, it's interesting to me today, like, the rampant use of like the B word or the C word, and, you know, like, I'll say something about it in a video that I was always raised, like, you don't use that language. And there'll be a lot of people that will be like, and I have friends of mine that are like, you know, at the appropriate time, I think that it's okay, you know, to call somebody that. But I was raised that you don't use those words. I was raised that you do not use the B word ever towards a woman. You don't ever, ever, ever use the C word towards a woman ever. You just don't use it ever. And I know in other countries and things it has different connotations, but here in the United States, it's like literally like the lowest of the low. And, I mean, it really kind of shocks me sometimes when I see, like, on social media, like on Twitter, somebody calls somebody that C word. I'm just like, to me, it is so absolutely offensive. And maybe it's just a generational thing. I don't know, you know? Like, we were watching, well, Alex, oh, actually, he was watching in the background last night. This was when I was cleaning up. He was watching The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. And I don't know who it was. I think it was Lisa Rinna that was talking about it. But they were talking about like name calling on the show, or being called names, because Sutton was having a conversation with that new one, Crystal. And somebody was saying, "I've been called every name in the book on this show. I've been called the see you next Tuesday word, and blah, 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 whatever." And, you know, it's just like, it's, I don't know. Like, this is the thing that, you know, like, I was always raised, like, if you have an issue with somebody, tell them what your issue is. Tell them why that you have an issue with them. But to resort to, like, calling somebody, like, such a degrading name like that, I don't know. It's just, I don't get it. I really don't understand it. And I'm sure that there's people that are watching that are like, "I'm not offended by that word." But I can tell you that everybody that I was raised around was highly offended by that word. You just didn't call people that name. Like, ever. Ever. And so with my dad, you know, anytime that I would say something disrespectful to my mom, which I did at times, you know, growing up, and I had a mouth on me, but not often. I really didn't, you know. I look back on that, and like, even with the drinking and the using and stuff, it's so weird because, like, even at like 12 to 15, I drank like a 50-year-old. Like, I drank like in my room, like at my dad's house. Like, once my dad, my stepmom had gone to bed with the door locked, watching a movie with like alcohol that I had stolen. Like, I mean, it wasn't like, I don't know, I wasn't getting drunk and like destroying stuff in the house. It was bizarre, almost, kind of in retrospect. But I did have a mouth on me, and I did get lippy sometimes. And, oh, my dad would be furious about it. I remember this one time, and I was actually a little bit older. I don't know how much, I mean, I wasn't like 14 or 12 or something. And so when you walk into our house, at my dad's house, it's like you walk into the front door and there's like this, like, you know, area that you walk into. And then there's a huge living room that overlooks like the back patio that overlooks like the lake, right? But to the right, to the left is their bedroom and like an upstairs bathroom and like their main floor suite and stuff like that. To the right is like the dining room and then the kitchen. And my dad had his back, and there's like an island. So there's like sink, island, door, dining room, entryway, bathroom, and then their bedroom. And I can remember we were standing there, and I was having some discussion with my dad, and we had gotten into it about something. I can't remember what it was, but I literally, at that point, you guys, I don't know, I must have been like 17 or 18. I mean, I was not young. And I will never forget this. My dad looked at me, and I said something to him like, quit being, I said, you need to stop being like an a-hole or something. I can't remember what I said. And I was kind of like joking, but kind of not. And he looked at me and he goes, what did you say to me? He goes, did you just, and I'll never forget, he like turned and I just saw that one eye, and he was like, what did you say to me? I mean, he was furious. And he was around that island, and I mean, I ran. I literally, in all of my years, had never been scared of my dad, never been scared of him. I've never been scared of him since. And my dad never laid a hand on me. And, so, I'm like up against the wall in their bedroom. I ran that way. And my dad got up in my face and he was like, don't you ever disrespect me. Don't you, he was like, I do not call you names. Don't you ever disrespect me. And I was like crying and apologetic, and, you know, it was bad. That was the only time I think like my dad and I really, you know, I was disrespectful with the drinking and the using and things like that. Really, my dad would say, like, I think if he, I don't even know, you know, really, like, he remembers a lot of it, but like, I don't know really how much of the specific things he would remember. I think if he was here, he would say, the two things that were so disrespectful about you with drinking and using were that A, you lied about where you were and what you were doing. So I never knew where you were, and I was always afraid. And then I think he would say the second thing is you always disrespected our curfews. Because here was my dad's issue, especially like once I got in high school. I had really late curfews, but my dad was like, if it's a weeknight, like in the summer, like if it was a Wednesday or Thursday night, and I have to be up the next morning at 6, you need to come in at a reasonable time or stay somewhere and let us know that you're staying there. He was like, because I don't want my night disrupted when I have to go the next morning and do surgery and be alert just because you chose to come in at 2 o'clock in the morning. Actually, I don't remember really having much of a curfew. I remember just like telling them where I would be, and that would always piss him off because he'd say like, well, you said you were going to be here and then you ended up somewhere else. And we didn't have cell phones back then, remember? And, I can just remember I would come in and like the dogs would start barking and stuff, and my dad would just be furious. He'd be like, I can remember him coming out of bed and just being like, I ask you not to, and he wasn't like, not furious is a strong word. He would just be standing there and he'd be like, and I'd be like, you know, weaving, and he would be like, I ask you not to come home this late. I ask you to be respectful, you know, of my sleeping. And so I think it's hard, you know, like my dad really was so angry when I got sober. I mean, and rightfully so. I had really put my dad through it, you know, with like attorneys and legal issues and car accidents and curfews and therapy, and I mean, on top of all the money that my dad spent, treatment programs, you know, on top of all the empty promises. I mean, that's why I'm sorry means nothing to families of addicts and alcoholics. Like, I've said this in videos before, and people really have a hard time with it, and I've kind of learned over time, especially on social media, that there are people that need to hear I'm sorry, you know. I think to some people, like, I'm sorry means a lot. And so I think that this light is literally the shortest light in Indianapolis. Like 2-3 cars got through there. 3 cars. I think there are some people that need to hear I'm sorry, you know, like it means something to them and it gives them some kind of closure and whatever. But like with me, my dad would always say, don't say you're sorry, because sorry just means forget what you just did. Like when you say I'm sorry, what you're wanting from me is just for me to just forget what you just did and act like it never happened and go on. And he is like, and I can't do that because what you've done has impacted me, you know? I need you to take some responsibility and then work towards changing. And you know, what's interesting about it is that is long before, it's so funny because this guy looks like this booktuber. This guy next to me is like a dead ringer for Robbie from Robbie Reads. He's like a booktuber, bookstagrammer, author. He has a book coming out this year, and this guy next to him could literally be like his twin brother. But Robbie doesn't live. He lives in Florida. He doesn't live in Indianapolis. Even has a hat on, like the kind of hats that Robbie wears and everything. But anyway, my dad was like, you know, that was before I ever really like got into a 12-step program and like understood like, you know, how to like take responsibility for the wreckage of our past and make amends and stuff like that. And, you know, even when I did make amends to my dad, my nose is itching. Even when I did make amends to my dad, it was like, and my stepmom, I think at the time, my stepmom, because she always really like had a clue what was going on. I think partly because she's younger. My stepmom's like 20 years younger than my dad. I think partly because she really had a clue what was going on, and she would tell my dad. But I will say this, okay, like when I was like in late high school, my stepmom and I struggled a lot. I had a lot of issues with her. When I was in junior high, she and my mom were the ones that talked. Like, they were the ones that arranged rides and doctor's appointments and plane rides and all that stuff. She and my mom. So the story is, it doesn't really matter, but it's been so long at this point, I can tell it. Sometimes I'm like, okay, since my dad and my stepmom are still around, I'm like real protective of these stories, but it doesn't really matter. So my dad, when he left my mom, was interested in somebody else and dated her for a little while. My mom absolutely could not stand that woman. Like, literally could not stand that woman because she thought that my dad left her for her. Which I think there was maybe a little bit of truth in that. Although what's interesting is later when I asked my dad about like them getting divorced, and he said, your mom and I had just both fell out of love. And I thought this was admirable of my father. Think what you think about it, I don't know. My mother was somebody that believed that once you make marriage vows, you stay married for the rest of your life forever, no matter what. But my dad said, you know, we had both fallen out of love with each other, and I knew your mom would never leave, and I felt like one of us deserved to be happy, and I thought by leaving then, you know, she would find a life too, and we would both be happy. And I asked my dad if he cheated, and he said, I never cheated on your mother. And he said, had I stayed, my fear was that I would. And he said, I knew I needed to leave at that point, because I wasn't the kind of man that would ever cheat on a woman. And I respected that, you know? I mean, as kind of strange as that sounds, like, I don't know why that makes me tear up. I believe if I have any character, I really got it from my dad. So that woman that my dad dated, who I remember, I liked her. She's here in Indianapolis still. She married somebody else, and she started a business. And my mom, probably 2 or 3 years before my mom passed away, she always wanted to see her in person. She had like always, like she just wanted to like face to face see this woman. I don't know why. And I think I told this on here not too long ago, and my mom went into the place that she owns. She owns like a little store here in town. A successful store, actually. And my mom went in there, and she asked for her. And so she came out, and she was like, can I help you? And she was like, are you so-and-so? And the woman said, yeah. And my mom said, I'm so-and-so. And she said, I just wanted to get a look at you now that I have, I can leave. Or something like that. I don't know. But my mom never had an issue with my stepmom. She was never threatened by her. She wasn't the woman that my dad was, you know, like they didn't meet for like another year or two after. Got even longer than that, probably another 3 years. But my stepmom and I, when I was in high school, so when I was in high school, my stepmom went back to college, like the late high school. She went back to college for art. And she got a bachelor's degree in fine art. And she became, I guess maybe that was more like when I was in college, but she knew like a lot of people that I knew. And it was just hard. I don't know, like just like, she would just like set boundaries and limits at her house, as she should have as a stepmom. And I was a kid that didn't want to follow those boundaries and limits. And I think it was hard for her because she was always somebody that had been, like when my dad and my stepmom got married, she said to me, I'll never forget this. We sat down and had she's like, we're gonna have a long conversation. I remember telling my cousin Caroline this because Caroline has 2 stepsons. And I said, this was really helpful for me. So my stepmom and I sat down, she had a conversation with me after my dad and my stepmom got married. And she said, you know, I will never be your mom. I'm not trying to be your mom. She said, you have a wonderful mom and I don't want to be that. And she said, and I will never be your friend. But I get to be something special that you don't have in your life. And I get to be somebody that is more than a friend and cares about you and loves you deeply. And she has all these years. She's been fantastic. And honestly, you know, in early sobriety, like she and my dad came to every family group. Like she came to literally every family group. And that I had, like that was, well, I guess that was an aftercare after I got out. Well, they came to all the education groups. But she was really, really helpful in me getting sober. Yeah. How did I get onto all of this? I don't even know. I'm talking about all kinds of stuff on here today, aren't I? My stepmom's the reason that my mom went into the hospital. I've told that on here a bunch of times, but my mom she'd been in the hospital, I think 2 times at that point. And she didn't want to go back in. I think she knew if she went back in, it was like, that was the end. I think she knew something was really terribly wrong and she couldn't figure it out and she was scared. And so my stepmom had been driving, and my stepmom had step-parents as well. And so she had been driving around the hospital and didn't know if she could come in. And apparently she called her mom, and her mom said, you're part of that family too, you should go in. And so she did. And she came in, and my mom wasn't listening to anybody about like needing to admit herself into the hospital. She wasn't willing to do it. And my stepmom was standing over her, and I remember my mom looked up at her and said, you look so pretty. She was like, oh my God, your hair looks so nice and stuff. My stepmom like knelt down, and she put her hand to her hand. And she said, look at your hand. She said, there's hardly any blood moving through your hand. She said, you need to go, look at my hand. And she said, you need to go into the hospital. And I remember my mom looked over at me, and she looked back at her, and then she looked over at me, and she said, well, I guess if she says that I need to go in, I need to go in. I just think that's so weird, you know, like these relationships that shouldn't work. I feel so blessed in my life that I had parents that didn't fight. You know, my mom and my stepmother never got into these horrendous like arguments and stuff. I mean, they had their moments. There were some things through the years that, you know, but not many, honestly, like only a couple. And today. I honestly I can tell. It's like 2 seconds. It's right at the end. It's weird how those moments in your life that you don't even really know at the time that they're happening, that are gonna be like these pivotal moments, you know? It's really weird. I remember going over to my dad's house. Because like right after, I think it was like the day after my mom died. And I'd asked him to give a eulogy at the funeral, talking about like their time together and like, you know, when my mom was younger and whatever. And I remember my stepmom said something to me about, she always calls me kiddo. And she said something like, well, you still got me, kiddo. And she just like lost it. And I don't know, but there was something like really comforting in that moment, you know? I remember like years later, it couldn't have been too many years later, maybe the next summer or the summer after, because it was with Alex. Alex and I went out there, and it was in the summer, and we were sitting outside, and my aunt had told me, and I had known this, and I don't know why, I'm just like literally like floodgates open, crying. But my aunt had told me, I don't know when I asked my dad this, I really don't remember. And my aunt had told me that the last day my dad had come in there, you know, my mom was in a coma during all of this, and he had asked everybody to leave the room, and he sat in the room with like the curtains closed and stuff for like an hour with my mom. And so I asked him later, I said, what did you say to her in there? Like, my mom, all her life, all she wanted were like these answers from my dad. Like why she didn't feel like, why he didn't think that, you know, she always thought it was like she wasn't good enough, or she wasn't thin enough, or she hadn't been a good enough wife, and all these kinds of things. And my dad said, you know, I just sat in there with her and I told her, you know, like, you were like such a great wife, and we just fell apart, and we just fell out of love, and you gave me the greatest gift ever in Peter. And he said, I just told her, like, you know, that she was such a fantastic woman, and like all those things that my mom had like wanted to hear her whole life. You know, it's crazy because my mom died at 64. She was so young, but like she had been sober for, you know, a month shy of 13 years. She had repaired every relationship in her life. We were on, like, there was nothing that she and I hadn't talked about or resolved, you know. And then she got that from my dad at the end, which, I mean, who knows how cognizant of that she was. And it was like, in a weird way, like, even though my mom was so young, it was like, she had like fixed all this stuff, you know, that had like really upset her and stressed her out for so many years. I think there's something to be said about really, really, really working on cleaning up the wreckage of your past, you know? I've been thinking a lot about regrets in the last 24 hours. I'm going to turn around and go back because I want to make videos, and I've been vlogging for like, well, a little over 30 minutes at this point. But anyway, I've been thinking a lot about regrets because this is, I can't turn in there. A meditation that I read yesterday was about regrets. And This is so weird. They have this like turn lane to turn that way, but there's nowhere you can turn. It doesn't even make any sense. You know, I think it's interesting when people say, like, I have no regrets. I talked about this at length on my Peterisms video, but I always think it's interesting when people say, like, I have no regrets. Like, I don't live with regrets. And I can't say that. Like, I can't look at my life and say there are things that I wish I hadn't done, that I had done differently, or there are things that, you know, my life's not over, so if I have regrets of things that I wish that I had done, I guess I need to get to doing them, right? Like, I mean, that should be the lesson in life, that there are things that you want to do, go do them, right? I was actually talking to my friend Valerie kind of about that. It's like, I'll like look at something that I like, you know, want to get, or something that I want to, like, I'll look at a bag, you guys, like this bag that I got, because I wanted, you guys know that I wanted to get like a nice bag. Like, I will sit there literally, and I will look at a bag. Like, this is a poor excuse, but, or a poor example, but like, I'll sit there and look at it for like 6 weeks. I'll have like the tab open on my like computer for like 6 weeks. And I'm like, it's kind of like my mom, like when she passed away. It's so interesting. I was telling Alex this the other day, because he didn't even know what I was talking about. I said, do you remember those sheets that we had that were like these yellow and white flowers and stuff? They were gorgeous sheets. And there were shams and all this kind of stuff. And it was when we moved in, when I moved into the condo, it was the sheets that I started using on the bed at the time. They were brand new sheets. Like, they had never been used before. They were in like the plastic containers in the closet and everything. My mom had bought them. They were Halston sheets. And my mom had bought this like beautiful bed set, right? The whole thing was Halston. I think she got it on sale. My mother was such a bargain shopper. And, you know, she never used it. She waited and waited and waited. And I think, like, it's not just that, but it's like, if you want to go somewhere, or you want to try a certain kind of food, or you want to watch a movie, what are you waiting for? Or you've been waiting to see this old friend, call them up, you know, make it happen. It's like, I think we wait and we wait and we wait. And those are the things I think, like at the end, like my mom said to me, you know, at the end of your life, it's not the things you did that you regret, it's the things that you never did, or you never tried. And my mom had a lot of those. She had a lot of regrets of how she wished she had lived her life differently, you know? Places that she had gone, you know? And like, fear really kept her stuck. You know, my mom really wanted to live in New York, and she really wanted to, she used to talk about how she would go to Elaine's and listen to jazz music on Thursday nights, if it, you know? And she really wanted to live in like San Francisco Harbor on like a boat. I was just watching Foul Play the other day. I found it on YouTube. And I was like, it's not anywhere else but on YouTube, but I love that movie. And Chevy Chase in the movie lives on a houseboat. I was like, I wonder if that's where she got that idea. But she wanted to be like a trial attorney and live in San Francisco Harbor, you know? She had wanted to be a costume designer and work for Edith Head at like one of the big, you know, studios and stuff. And my mom had all these dreams of things that she was going to do. And she was really an armchair traveler, like Ian Tyler said, the writer Ian Tyler, you know? She never did a lot of these things, and I don't want that to be my life. Like, I don't want to look back on my life and be like, well, you had all these dreams and you never did them, you know? I actually have done a lot of the things that I have wanted to do in my life. I've actually, like, places I've wanted to go, things I've wanted to see, like, I have done a lot of that in my life. I feel I really ask myself that question on a pretty regular basis. Like, if tomorrow was the end of my life, and I hope it's not, but if tomorrow was the end of my life and I never made it here, I never made it there, like, what are like truly bucket list things that I feel like I would have to want to do in my life, or at the end of my life looking back I wouldn't be okay? And, you know, honestly, I don't really have any anymore. I really don't. Like, I also think my list has gotten smaller as the years have gone on. You know, when I was younger, it was like, do this, do that, you know, backpack through Europe, go here, go there. That woman is like screaming at somebody on the phone. Oh my God, she's like screaming at somebody on the phone. And, I don't have that today. Like, I feel like I have a very blessed life. I feel like I've done and seen most of what I want to see. There's just not really a whole lot that I want to do or see. My life has become very small, and I'm happy about that. Like, I like that. You know, like, I mean, if I had a bucket list for the summer, my bucket list for the summer would be like, I was kind of like the other night, I was like irritated with myself because I hadn't gone swimming yet, and it was like the 7th. And so my neighbors were walking back, and this was on Monday night because I've been waiting to go swimming all year long, right? And I'm just not going to the pool. And it's because, like, I'm just screwing around the house, getting stuff done, and then filming videos. And before I know it, it's like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, right? And so I'm just like, oh, I'll go tomorrow, whatever. So that night, I was like, you haven't even been swimming at the pool yet, and you've been waiting all year long, because I'd seen my neighbors walk back from the pool, and I had asked them, you know, like, how cold it was. So I went up there that night, and I went swimming, and it was cold, but, like, right when you jumped in, it was cold. After that, it was nice, and I was so glad that I went. Those are the things, I think, today, the way that I look at my life with, like, a bucket list stuff, you know? It's like, I wanted to get my front yard done. I wanted to get my backyard done. And now that it's done, like, I'm happy about that. And now I want to, like, watch certain shows, read certain books. Like, those are my bucket list things this summer. I don't really have these huge things that I want to do. I will say that, you know, I'm going to be 49 at the end of this month, which is just so bizarre to me. Like, it feels weird to me. Like, I don't feel, like, I don't know what it means to say you feel a certain age. I don't know, I feel like 40, I mean, I'm starting to remember, like, my parents at those ages. Like, I remember specifically my dad's 55th birthday, because he talked about double nickels. You know, I will also say my dad's 50s were probably, and my mom's 50s, because she got sober at 51, were probably the best years of their life. So there's part of it that I'm excited about, but at the same time, it's like I'm starting to get into, like, the last part of my life, you know? There's stuff that I want to do, but then I don't know what it is that I want to do, like I just said, you know? I guess it's just live more, travel more, spend more time with Alex and the dogs, spend more time with my friends. I have a blessed life. I think that's what it is, you know? It's like there's just, I don't know, maybe there isn't a bunch of stuff that I have that I want to do. It's like Oprah says, you know, once you achieve a dream a bigger dream. It's like the other day, like, Alex was asking me, he's like, how's your, like, cozy mystery coming along that you're writing? And I said, well, I've outlined a lot of it, but, like, I've, you know, not really started much of it. And he was like, are you going to do it? And I said, I don't know. And some days, like, I feel like I have to write another book, and other days I feel like, was it more about the fact that I just wanted to be able to say to myself, you've written a book, you know? I don't know. I really don't, honestly. I do know that I want to spend some time really asking myself that question on my birthday, and really spending some time on my birthday or the day before really doing some evaluation by myself and really saying, really, are there things you want to do? Because now is the time to make that list. You know, I really want to spend the last year of my 40s really focusing on some things. I will say this, like, getting into the best shape of my life, like, that is something that is important to me. And one of the reasons why that's important to me isn't just because I want to have this fantastic body and be able to wear the clothes I want to wear, but really so that I can enjoy this next phase of my life, you know, and also be able to hopefully live longer if I'm healthier, you know? So that is, like, really a big deal for me, and I think that probably will be a focus on my 49th year, you know, of really trying to get more into shape. I've asked my dad that. I'm like, do you have things that you... He's like, I don't really have anything that I haven't done in my life. He's like, I mean, are there places that I wish I had gone? Sure. He was like, it's also not places that I feel like if I don't make it there, it's like I didn't, you know? I love to travel. I absolutely love to travel. I love staying in hotel rooms with my husband. I love going to new places. I love just getting away. But if we never traveled again and just stayed at our condo, we never moved, never got a place in Florida, and we just stayed at our condo, I'd be completely fine with that. I think one thing that was really hard for me was, you know, just when I was getting to a point where I could kind of accept that stuff in life happens, you know, was when, you know, PP got sick. And then and I said this a lot in my vlogs during that time. I said, you know, like, I don't want time to go on. Like, I want time to stand still and just stop, you know? And then PP passed away. And it was like, I mean, I knew time doesn't stand still. But that was like really like an era for us, you know, of Alex and I and PP, Boo, and Tucker. It was like, it was just the five of us, you know? It was like, I don't know how to explain it. It was just... And now that PP is gone and it's just Alex and I and Boo and Tucker, I think a lot about like when they're not gonna, you know, and then I go to a sad place. I was actually gonna do this video today on my Peter Does Stuff channel, so maybe I'll save it for there. But that's when I go to like, I'm so happy, but then I take that happiness and I turn it into something that makes me sad, you know. I have a charmed life, I really do. I have a magical life, and I feel so blessed for it, you know? And I think it's important for me to live in gratitude every single day and remember what a blessed life I have, you know? We already have weeds growing in our walkway, can I just tell you? Not many, it's just those sticky weeds, but they're kind of like that length that they're not big enough to like pull out. And he sprayed like crazy. He like pulled it all up, got it down to the dirt, sprayed like crazy. But we have had so much rain, I don't know if that's what it's about. So I'm gonna have to go out there and pick those weeds, because if I don't, they're gonna grow tall again. I think sometimes in talking about the past and talking about, you know, myself when I was in high school, or, you know, my relationship with my dad and my stepmom when I was that age, or with my mom and whatever, I think sometimes it makes me like realize how old I really am. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like, I understand now what my mom meant. Like, she said to me one time, she said, it's like such dark clouds, it looks like it's gonna start pouring down. She said to me one time, she said, you know, you kind of like wake up at some point, and she was like, I think she was like in her 50s, I think this is when she was sober. She said, you wake up at some point and you're like in your 50s or whatever, I can't remember what she said, but she was like, and you feel like in your head, like you realize your body is getting older, you see wrinkles and whatever. Like I have like bags under my eyes like every morning that I get up anymore. And she said, you know, you realize physically you're not, I mean, it's hard to look in a mirror with a white beard and not realize that I'm older, right? But she's like, you realize that you're not 20 anymore. But the thing is that your mind plays tricks on you, because your mind really hasn't aged. Like, it really hasn't. Like, you still feel in your head like young. You still feel like, you still feel like it's just been like a blip in time. Like it's just been and it does, you guys. It's so weird. It feels like that. It feels like it hasn't been 30 years. But then there are other times when I'm talking about like my dad and my stepmom, or like when I was in high school and whatever, that like, it does feel like a really long time, because I'm thinking about like some of my, like while I'm telling the story, I'm in my head visually seeing these things and seeing like my friends standing there with me while I'm like, I don't know if you like when you're telling stories, if you see things visually in your head, okay? But like, so while I'm telling these stories, I'm visually seeing my friends there, and they're standing there in the kitchen talking to my dad and my stepmom and stuff, right? But then I'm also like seeing pictures of my friends on Facebook today, and they've aged, and I've aged, and we've all aged, you know? And I realize I'm not 25 anymore. I'm not 20 anymore. And that's okay. I've kind of tried to learn to appreciate every age that I'm at. I don't know what I think about that saying, like, age is just a number. Like, I'm not sure I believe that. I probably said it at one time or another. I probably have, really. But I don't know what I think about that age is just a number. I do think there's a lot that goes along with, like, getting older. There's a cicada again. I think you take some things more seriously and other things less seriously as you get older. I think that's probably one of the biggest things, you know? Things that you used to just, like, get so spun out by, you know, you just, like, are like, it's just not really that important anymore to fight the fight. And other things, like, you know, the need to be right, I think. Like, I was watching this, because I'm going to do a video about this on my drama channel today, but I was watching all this Trisha and Ethan stuff go down, you know, and I was thinking to myself, this absolute need to always be right, you know, and I lived in it for a very long time. I really did, you know. I really thought, like, I need to be right. Like, there comes a time when you need to be right. And I think there are some things that it's important to be right about, right? But then when you realize that your need to be right is affecting your family and your friends and your happiness, your happiness, you know? Could this car get any closer, seriously? You realize, I don't really need to be right that much, you know? And you don't passively say to the other person, okay, you're right, I'm wrong. You don't say that. You just go, okay, well, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I need to look at this in a different way, you know? And, you just realize it just doesn't matter that much. And all those times that you fought to be right, was the payoff really that great? Did it really matter? You know, do you really feel that justified in the... And I'm not talking about serious issues. Like, when I talk about this, people are always like, well, these things happen to me, and that... No, I'm not talking about that. There are some things that I do feel like you need to have somebody validate you're being right about. I'm talking about the petty stuff. You know, and I'm not saying that what happened between Trisha and Ethan is petty. I'm saying at some point you have to look at what's going on, and does the end justify the means? Like, is this... And I know there's a lot of you out there that are like, I don't even know what Peter's talking about. Yeah, but I think you have to ask yourself, does the end justify the means? Like, am I really getting what I want out of this situation? Like, what long term, like, what do I want? And if long-term what I want is happiness and peace and maybe someone to hear what I have to say, then maybe what I need to do is sometimes shut my mouth, you know? Like, there's a recovery saying, it says, shut your mouth and open your ears. Guess who was told that a lot in sobriety? This one right here. And I've had to learn that. You know, there are times that I need to shut my mouth and open my ears and just listen to what somebody else is saying. And sometimes when I shut my mouth and I open my ears, other people are willing to listen to me too. And then it becomes not about who's right and who's wrong. It just becomes about, well, this is my perspective and that's your perspective, and can we meet in the middle somewhere? You know, no, I'm right. I am right, you know? It's just not worth it. It really just isn't. What's that saying that my friend used to say? My long-term happiness is more important than my short-term. Whatever, I can't remember. need to text my friend and ask her what that saying is. I don't know why I can't remember. But it's the truth, you know, it's like, in the short term sometimes I always think, oh, the battery's dying. I always think, God, I need to be right. Like in this moment, like I need to be right. But really what I need to take a look at is my long-term happiness is more important than my need to be right in this moment, you know? Is my conviction in this moment more important than my long-term happiness? Ask that question, you know? Long-term happiness. Interesting, isn't it, when you think about it from that point of view? Anyway, all right, you guys, I'm gonna get off here before the battery dies. So that vlog was all over the place today, wasn't it? Oh my God, cried, laughed, talked about such serious issues. Anyway. If nobody else has told you this today, I love you. Most importantly, make sure that you reach out to somebody and let them know how much they mean to you. Somebody might need to hear from you today, you know? They're just alone and all of a sudden your phone call or text just totally makes their day. And also, like I always say, practice random acts of kindness, but also like I always say, don't tell anyone. And like it says in the 4 agreements, always lead with love. And let's put out some love, compassion, tolerance, forgiveness, understanding, hope, faith, and courage, amazement, wonder, and awe out there in the world. And I love you guys, and I hope that you are having an amazing Thursday, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye. Love ya!